knowing awareness of the mind. It's the, thinking all over the place mind, and we miss what's happening right now. So Geshe spent a lot of time this year talking about awareness and meditating on awareness and being able to, what's the purpose of that? Why are we meditating on awareness? Anybody remember? Don't you hate people who ask questions? I couldn't hear that. That's convenient. Yeah. So it's just that meditating on awareness, meditating on the breath is a way to start calming the mind. In order to do everything from a place of loving kindness and compassion and patience and generosity and all our good qualities, it really helps to have a calm mind. Having a scattered, agitated mind, that is not a good place to draw from for kind speech, kind actions. Or even just to experience what's happening, because we're distracted by those minds. So if we practice every day, or a few minutes at least, to just sit with our breath, perhaps sit with just trying to meditate on awareness for a few minutes, that will help us chill out and just have a more relaxed, peaceful mind. And right away, your suffering is less. So it has an immediate benefit. And the more we practice it, the more we can draw from that place of peace throughout the day. We'll get familiar with noticing it because it's always there. We don't think it's always there, but that's what awareness is. It's a quality of how is it defined? That's another question. And there's no answer. Clear and knowing, huh? No, I'll repeat it. Clear and knowing. Thank you, Joe. That which is clear and knowing. So what does that mean? So clear, this clarity is that it's the faculty we have that allows us to experience. So the mind is something that allows us to experience. The clear nature of the mind is what allows that to happen. The knowing part of the mind is the experience. It's not knowledge or a thought, it's an experiencer. And so when we're just cluttering our mind full of random thoughts, agitated thoughts, all this kind of stuff, and now it might be about what's going on in the moment. So, but basically, we want to stay in touch with the experience, with the clarity, because a clear mind and just simple awareness, that knowing mind, which means, like as you sit here, what are your senses telling you? What are you experiencing with your senses? Color. Okay, so yes, so you have the experience of color.
Hearing, listening to you.
The sound of voices, the sound of the, whatever that thing is that keeps the air.
HVAC system.
The HVAC system. We might hear a train. We hear cars. The comfort. How are you experiencing the comfort? Like just relaxed body or, so yes. So you want to look. And so sometimes you're experiencing a uncomfortable, that experience of not pleasant. Sometimes it's an experience of pleasant. But the main thing is just that we're always aware of all these different aspects. So we have, an eye awareness, we have a nose awareness, we have a sound awareness, we have a taste awareness, we have a touch awareness, and we have a mental awareness. So that mental awareness can help us stay present with this calm mind, so it can give that clarity. Oh, so if we're getting all riled up, we can pause, just focus on our breath for a moment or two. You don't have to close your eyes. Nobody has to know what you're doing, but you can just, allow yourself to recognize that underneath all that stuff is this faculty of clarity and experiencing, this luminous experience. And we can draw from that. That is a good basis for us to choose how to respond to what's happening in that moment. That makes sense? You have a question? Okay, just checking. Okay. So, yeah. Yes, please, Grace.
Okay. We're just looking at our mind. The thing is, like if something is really bugging us here, well, it's not bugging us. We're getting riled up. Okay. That's the key. I keep getting these little insights into answering my own question. You're not thinking about the thing that you're you're looking at your mind and you want to calm that down, right?
Right.
You can't control
The external
out
stuff.
there, like the guy who pulled in front of you on the way here.
Right.
You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about your mind and how you handle that. Is that good?
Well, and you're allowing yourself to just get in touch with the awareness of your mind.
But not the action of awareness. It's just
Yeah, you just experience
thinking
it.
your mind and about not how it handles that, but
Not the thoughts that arise due to the external stuff. We're just experiencing the clear knowing faculty of mind. And the clearness is just the faculty that allows anything to be experienced. It's whatever arises in the mind. We have an experience of that. We usually skip way ahead because our minds are really, really fast and our habit of thinking is really, really fast and very much we're habituated to it, to judging, to reacting, maybe get impatient or anger or attachment, craving arises, depending on what the external thing is. Here's a hand. We start creating a story about that. Yeah.
So is it kind of like so the example of someone pulling out in front of you, just like not attaching meaning to that and just letting it, just realizing that it happened and not attaching meaning to it? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think that's the starting point, I think, is just getting familiar with that there's a calmness underneath whatever is happening, that we have to get familiar with that or we miss it. We don't think it's there. Once, the irritation arises or the reaction arises, we're not there. Now we've got, a disturbing thought in the mind, And so the more we get familiar that there is this calm nature of mind underneath, it's sort of like, it's not a good analogy. I was going to say the ocean, because it's actually very busy in the bottom of the ocean, and it's very busy on top of the ocean, but whatever. We kind of think of the bottom of the ocean as still and the top of the ocean with the waves. And so the waves are like all our thoughts and the bottom of the ocean is like the nature of our mind, So it's the ocean, it's like that stillness of the ocean is still what allows all the little fish to live in it and all the different things happening in it. But it's but it's just the sort of a container for it. And the awareness is our ability to know. And what knowing means in this context is not the same as knowing in general. You know, when we say, oh, I know the definition of that, da, 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 it's not that. Knowing is an experience of whatever you're aware of. So pausing to allow that experience gives you some space to choose not to take that in as some sort of whatever it is. You have to kind of go, oh, that's going to make me late. Maybe that's your theme story when you drive, you know, or isn't he selfish? Or he almost hit me. I had that moment on the way here, you know, so you don't have room in front of me. What are you doing pulling over? You know, so whatever, you know, fear is often the case when driving. So we want to be able to just take it in and not and respond rather than react. So if you're driving and that happens, what's the saner response than yelling at the person or speeding up? Welcome to my lane. Exactly. It's like, because that's safer. And why get agitated? You know, we don't know what's going on in their mind. You know, there's just no point. And besides which, we have a lot to think about. We don't have to get all agitated over, you know, sharing the lanes, you know. So it's having a calm mind gives us a lot more ability to respond in the way we would prefer to respond. We're very habituated to having buttons pressed, you know, and we're just reacting all the time. But if the more we can pause, take some breaths, remember there's calmness somewhere in our mind. Maybe underneath all that. But then that's also the way of, you know, like if irritation's arisen, you know, and you don't follow that thought, you choose to, okay, pause, take a few breaths, that irritation may disappear. So how do we practice this? Because we need to get familiar. Familiarity with these states of mind that give us space, you know, is how we can have them in every moment. You know, if we're not familiar with it, we won't go there. We'll just miss it. We'll already get into the response and do. So from listening to all Geshe-la's teachings, that's not true. Reading the notes of Geshe-la's teachings for the last year, what did he talk about a lot this year? I'm stretching now. Really? Mark, you remember? Shunyata. Well, emptiness. Before that, it's more like shamatha. You know, it's this, you know, being able to focus, to concentrate, whether it's on the breath, you know, or on mere awareness. It's the focusing that helps our mind just be, you know. So if someone is practicing with their breath, they're getting very familiar with the sensation of the breath going in and out of the body. They're getting very familiar perhaps with the sound, or that sometimes you have a short breath, sometimes you have a long breath. You know, you just get very, very familiar with that. But as you focus, the breath sort of disappears, you know, the longer you focus, which is why we start with counting the breath, because we want to make sure we're focusing on it. Because it's the focusing, that quality of focusing is what helps us calm all the distracted thoughts. Because what's happening when we're distracted? Yeah, you're following each of those thoughts, aren't you? You're not focusing, it's like you get hooked. Oh, okay, let's think about, a bagel. Let's think about last night's argument. Let's think about whatever. I mean, you just keep getting hooked, you know. So it's this, the more we can have fewer of those rapidly bouncy, it's like a pinball. I'm sure that's not a good example these days, but that's the only one I can think of. So, we want to be able to still the mind. And so we can't do that when we're in the thick of something that we're just totally unprepared for, but we're not in the thick of it with things that they're totally unprepared for most of the time. Most of the time, we're just going through the routine of our lives, We're waking up, we're getting dressed, we're, taking showers, we're getting, eating, we're going to work, we're, picking up the kid, whatever it is we do, we're just going, we're not in some crisis. So in those periods, that's when we can get even more familiar with this because we're not in a state of crisis. And then if we get familiar with it when the times are a little less chaotic, we can draw upon it when something happens. We'll have more experience of it and we can remember, oh, that's right. If I calm my mind, I will be able to see my way through this with more wisdom, with more clarity, just be able to respond and not feel like, you can't handle it. So we've all learned a lot about where to direct our minds, right? We want to direct our minds away from anger and towards patience and compassion and loving kindness. We want to, direct our mind away from greed and craving to a mind that is content with whatever we have. There are all these different instructions from the Buddha that help us know what habits of mind are more skillful and which ones are not. The ones that aren't lead us to suffering, and we have to get familiar. We have to notice that, recognize it, and kind of play it out. And with our, incredibly useful, the human brain and the mind, human mind, these are very good tools to be able to start to see, maybe getting mad and holding on to that anger, doesn't go well. In the end, it's not going to get me anything that I really want. So we know about that, but then, like Geshe at the beginning of the year started talking about this heart treasure for the courageous, which is Lama Atisha's teaching. Lovely Lama Atisha there in the red hat. So one of the early verses in that is that it says, friends, until you reach awakening, you need a guru. So follow a sublime spiritual friend. Until you realize the natural state, you need to receive teachings. So listen to the guru's instructions. You won't become Buddhas through mere knowledge of the Dharma. Knowledge is not enough. You have to practice it. You have to implement it. You have to, become familiar with it and then do it. There's the train. Anybody miss it? No. So, faith is not enough. Prayers are not enough. We have to take that knowledge, analyze it, and make it kind of really see its relevance to our lives and then implement it. Oh. So if we can see the logic that a calmer mind is a better mind to respond with, that there's more wisdom in a calm mind. There's no wisdom in an anger mind. So maybe that's not so useful. that we can, then we go, okay, well, what's the suggestion for that? Okay, I need to develop my focus and concentration. It's sort of like the assistant for a calm mind, is concentration. It's like, and then it's just this process of using all our tools, recognizing they fit together. The graduated path to enlightenment isn't a bunch of disparate, is that the word? Disparate parts. Yeah, they make sense. They are connected. They may not make sense at first. You have to study a while, get familiar with it, understand it, go to the teachings, read a book, all those things to really get with it. But, it's, if we want to take that knowledge and turn it into wisdom, we have to study it, we have to reflect on it, and then we have to meditate on it, and then we have to implement. So when we talk about guarding alertness, you can't guard your mind without this assistant of focus. You have to remember what it is you're trying to guard your mind from. So the calm mind is what helps that. And concentration is what helps the calm mind. So we need all those tools. Okay, so in my nervousness, I forgot you usually introduce yourselves, don't you? Say hi. Okay. I just love this fact that knowing is an experiencing. When we talk about a realization of impermanence or a realization of emptiness, it is that experience of those that we're talking about. It's not just understanding it or kind of having a glimpse of it, but all those glimpses add up, So it's really an experience of impermanence. It's an experience of loving kindness. It's an experience of compassion. Those are the things that's what our awareness knows. That's the power of the mind. It's not that we can hold an encyclopedia in our brain. And these days, we can just let the computers do that. It's not the smartest thing to do. We can just let the computers do that. Oh, I can just look it up. Isn't it nice that Geshe never has to look anything up? He just has to get his mala out and start counting beads, and then he gets to that section, whatever he's memorized years ago. It's really handy. So, and that's from familiarity. So that's another reason why this advice to read certain prayers every day, to read the foundation of all good qualities or the three principal aspects of the path or whatever, whatever you're on, or a couple of verses from Shantideva's Bodhisattva's Way of Life are so helpful because that helps be at our fingertips, our mental fingertips throughout the day. So if you're working on some particular state of just, mind that disturbs you, that brings you suffering, then, finding some verses that inspire you to remember the antidote to those things is helpful. I have my computer set on, like low battery use or something. So it keeps going dark on me. There's a connection there. So.
Tendron, you have a question.
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Um, it has become abundantly clear to me that I have, over the course of my life, made fear seem permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, my only defense against it is inaction. at the cost of innumerable things. I am rationally aware that fear is not permanent. However, I've always made it so in practice. My question, I guess, then is how do I realize
That it's
impermanence
impermanent,
of
fear, yeah. Well, most of us have a similar feeling with lots of our, if you have a habit of anger, it kind of feels like it's permanent. You know, if you have a habit of anxiety, it feels like it's permanent. If you have a habit of greed, it feels like it's permanent because we practice it so much, you know, so it always seems to be our go-to response, you know, and our go-to reaction. So we have to be very committed to recognizing when it's arisen, preferably at the earliest moment. That takes really getting familiar with maybe what clues your body tells you that you have fear, you know, and then try to start soothing that fear right from the beginning. You know, kind of first you recognize it, and then you might ask yourself, well, first, it's always good to just say, okay, like I have to tell myself, because that's one of my favorite disturbing emotions, you know, is just recognize, oh, I'm afraid. Okay. And then I have to tell myself, I'm not going to make it worse. I'm not going to do anything, say anything that's going to make this worse. Just in that moment. And then I breathe, you know, I make myself pause and breathe. And then I need to remind myself, okay, teaching say I have Buddha potential. Maybe I don't need to be so afraid. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, you know. We evolved that way and it's in terms of our body, but we don't have to stay that way. We can start reminding ourselves of all the different ways we've had success. You know, you learned how to take a bath. You learned how to brush your teeth. You learned how to get dressed. You learned how to perhaps drive a car. You learned how to do all these different things. So you're not incompetent. You know, we don't have to be the best at anything in order to be competent. We just need to be good enough. And the Buddha says, you are good enough. We have these qualities, we have everything we need to become a Buddha. That's pretty good, you know. We just need to cultivate the qualities that will lead to that kind of mind and let go of our hold, our grip, our grasping at the ones that don't. So inertia, you know, that where you just get in the habit of not saying yes. You know, you get in the habit of thinking, I can't do it, not going to do it, not going to try, da, 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 da. You have to start practicing saying yes. Okay, I'll give it a try. And how do you think your experience will be when you give it a try?
Well, usually it's painfully liberating is the best way to put it.
Well, mine's just painful. You know, like first, I'm just terrified. I mean, like I'm always terrified when I come here and get up on this teaching seat, you know. Oh my God, what was I thinking? You know, I mean, really, you know, it's just like now I know through experience of teaching a lot and having that reaction almost every single time. It's not going to kill me. I love talking about the Dharma, you know, I'm happy to share it. It's gold, you know, so it's just, you know, but it's like, it doesn't, you know, so okay. So I have the habit of being nervous about public speaking. You know, guess what that's about? Huh? Ego, a little bit of pride, reputation, all these negative, disturbing emotions, right? You know, so I don't want to give in to those. So I just emphasize. Geshe just says, well, teach, you know, so you kind of just teach, you know, you follow the guru's instructions. So, but when you realize that following through, going ahead and saying yes, that the fear doesn't kill you, the fear is not responsible for the mistakes we make. It's generally, the fact that we don't know, or we forgot, or we're not mindful, or whatever. I mean, it takes actually doing to develop confidence in the action. It's again, familiarity. So just like you remember how many things you had to check when you first got into a car when you were learning how to drive? Oh, I just forgot to check the mirror. Oh, I forgot this. Oh, I forgot to turn off the brake. And we're still driving around going, So we want to take the risk because we're tired of thinking fear is permanent. So obviously, when you stop doing that thing that you said yes to, that you're really afraid of doing, when that's finished, oh, I've done that, you're not in that state of fear anymore when you've allowed it to stop. So you need to notice when you're not afraid, because that will help you logically experience no fear. But you have to be aware. So this really being able to notice where your mind is, what you're experiencing, helps you notice when you're not experiencing that. And that helps you understand that all of our disturbing emotions are impermanent. We have them for a while and then they go away. And then our button's pressed and we have them again and but it's not permanent. And the more we get familiar with that, the more we get familiar with whatever the disturbing emotion is, especially if we're internalizing it. It's not like if your fear is making you hit other people, then you have two things you need to work on, So, but if it's an internal thing, it's not likely to kill you, So you trying out, going ahead and doing it anyway, So it's a process. So we have to have real kind, gentle compassion when we recognize, oh man, I'm really nervous about this. Or even that, man, this always makes me mad. We need compassion that we are familiar with our disturbing states of mind, But that doesn't mean we settle for it to be there. We don't just say, I can't do anything about it. Well, that's not true. Or at least the teachings say that's not true. Well, if I'm trying to listen to the teachings, maybe I will, look into that. And just like things that you used to be afraid of trying, to do, but you're just not at all now. If you notice, if you look, you'll realize that's probably true of other things I'll try. Some things might not, some things just like if you decide to, what are some things like, I don't really want to go hang gliding. And I don't think I ever want to go hang gliding, and that's okay. I don't have to get over that fear. So it's not getting over the fear of something. It's getting over the fear. It's the fear, being okay with the fear. Does that help at all? It's a process. And being able to accept yourself for having this habit of just being okay, so that's my thing. It doesn't have to remain my thing, but acceptance that that's what you got, that's what you're working with right now is, we want to be accepting of our, the fact that we're not Buddhas yet, that we have qualities that we practice that we'd really like to let go of them, but we haven't yet, and just be, not beat ourselves up for feeling that way and not saying, well, it's okay just to do nothing. You have to really think about what am I missing by doing nothing, and allow yourself to go, well, maybe I deserve to have those experiences too. So I'm going to start doing something. I had to have a whole year saying yes. Anybody invited me to something? No. And finally I said, okay, you've got to just start saying yes. And then you will learn what you want to choose. Right now, you just don't choose anything, So it's a process. And part of that process is having compassion for yourself that you're having to go through this process. Everybody's doing it, You know, it may not be fear, it may be something else. We have all got our stuff that makes us feel very vulnerable, you know, and we don't want to challenge, you know. So, and we miss out because of it. Oh, you know, it's like the way we build up barriers around our heart, and we think that's going to keep us from being hurt. Has that ever worked for anybody? No, it doesn't work. But yet we keep thinking it'll work. And then we have to, you know, when we finally go, oh, maybe it's worth taking the risk this time, we have to do all this work of tearing down those walls. And you might run out of time. You know, it just, well, it's really funny how we are. So, but nothing's permanent. This moment's not permanent. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Something that has helped me a lot with my anger is that if you go deeper into bliss and you realize that these changes between mental states are not sudden, they are a process. So before I used to think that things like fear or being angry were like the weather, right? Like one moment is sunny and the next one is raining. You cannot do anything about it. But to the point that you're making, actually there is a transition between the two states, between being calm and being angry, between being happy and being sad, right? And during that transition, there's a bunch of things that happen in our mind. It's the same thing when it is raining, right? First the clouds gather, then they get dark, then they get darker, then there's thunder, then there's rain, right? It's not that the rain just pop out of nowhere, right? But let's say thinking that states like fear or being angry are permanent and out of our control is like not being aware of the steps before it's going to rain. Right? Eventually we can say, oh, you know, the clouds are there, it's probably going to rain. And then you prepare, you take an umbrella, right? And I think that's the wonderful thing with the Dharma, that it allows you to understand these transitions in mental states as stepwise processes. And then sometimes you're good enough so you can say, okay, this is step number 1. I didn't have breakfast. I'm going to be hungry. And then if I'm late for something, I know the next thing is going to happen is I'm going to be very angry because of the first thing that jumps in front of me, right?
Because you're hungry.
Because I'm hungry, because I'm late. But you know, you're away, I'm hungry, I should be careful. My mental state is different. Now I'm late, I'm also stressed. I should be careful with the next person I talk to. So eventually you could be hungry, you could be late, but nothing's going to happen. You're not going to hurt other people or to be angry, right? And eventually I think that you probably get to a point that you can have happy thoughts without being completely distracted by them, or you could think about sad things without being sad, right? Just acknowledging those are thoughts.
And this is the key about noticing that first clue. Like for me, I get this little patch at my gut, you know, or my diaphragm, somewhere in there, you know, that just, oh, I'm not comfortable, you know, and I'm really good at noticing that now. So, and at that stage, I have a lot more wherewithal, is that a word, to be able to address it. You know, it's not full-fledged, whatever, you know, it's just, I'm not comfortable. And then I can identify what's going on. And, you know, what is that? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it irritation? Is it the hangries or whatever that expression is, you know, that we can, you know, and then we can go, you know, what I always try to remind myself is that when those kinds of experiences are there, my mind is getting agitated or is agitated. What's not there? What's not present with an agitated mind? Calmness is definitely not there. That's by definition. What else is not there? Compassion's not there. Wisdom isn't there. So I have to tell myself, oh, I'm not reliable in this. I shouldn't make any decisions. I shouldn't make, you know, I shouldn't, you know, I need to get unagitated. You know, I need to let go of the agitation in order. I mean, it's, you know, it's these steps. It's little bitty steps because it's what? A dependent arising. It's not permanent. It's causes and conditions coming together, and those causes and conditions include how we think, what we're experiencing in our body, what we're experiencing with all our senses. All these things are part of the causes and conditions. Yes, Chris. When I said wisdom's not present, it's that, okay, is that one of the steps? I'm not understanding the
It
question.
sounded like you were describing emptiness of anything, but then earlier you said, well, when we have an agitated mind, what don't we have? And somebody suggested wisdom. Was that the kind of wisdom?
It's not just the wisdom of emptiness,
Okay,
it's
okay.
any wisdom, because we're not reliable.
Okay, it is just like realizing you can't change what's going on.
Well, if you have that, then wisdom's there. You're no longer being distracted by the agitated mind.
Why, I've been sitting in this room and others much like it for 20 years, and I've even been called Mr. Emptiness, but it's just hard. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it is hard. This is why, that's what it takes to become enlightened, and we're not there yet.
That's why, here, Chris joke, that's why we call it the practice.
Yes, exactly so. And the good news is we're benefiting all along the way. It's not like, oh, we have to wait till enlightenment to suffer less. That's not the case. All these steps, that we start to help, respond to things instead of react to things. And you notice when we're just being aware that right now we're experiencing some discomfort and that looks like this. And so all of these things help us take actions that help reduce our suffering, because that's whose hands it's in. It's not in the hands of all the people that push our buttons. It's in the hands of ourselves. It's our skills of developing our understanding and implementing our understanding, and having confidence in impermanence, having confidence in that we have all sorts of good qualities, Yes, we have a lot of confusion, but that's not all we have. So it's just a matter of really getting familiar with all these aspects of the teachings, not just the teachings on all our disturbing emotions. We need to remember that all the teachings and all our positive emotions, we have those. We're trying to cultivate them to have them more often, but we're not starting from scratch. We have the potential to become Buddhas. That means, we can really develop them to their utmost extent. That's good news. So this is, so we need to have these, if you're really stuck, and I was really stuck, if you're stuck into certain types of ways of thinking, of beating yourself up or feeling guilty all the time, or, these kind of things, I had to do a lot of self-talk of going, that's not helping. Feeling guilty just gives you an excuse not to change, but you're not that. And I even know that. I mean, it's like the Buddha didn't have to tell me that. We can see our change throughout our whole lives. What the Buddha teaches us is what good news that is. That it's not just we change from this negative to that negative, that we, we really, it depends on what we're focused on. So this development of concentration can help us reduce all that scattering of the mind so that we can get in touch with that deeper level of mind or more subtle level of mind that is clear and knowing, and that knowledge isn't the point. Remember Venerable would always talk about, you're learning how to bake a cake or play the piano, so you have all these instructions. Well, the point isn't the instructions. You need to mix them together, do the instructions and then bake the cake and then eat it or give it away, so it's the same kind of thing. We have all these instructions, but the point is not just knowing what there are, just being able to list them or da, 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 da. It's being able to take that list, because it is handy to have it at your mental fingertips, and then put them into practice. Actually try them out. And then you go, how'd that work for me? You use that experience of the action and then look at it, examine it. Okay, well, I don't know about that, but I'm willing to give it a try again, because nothing changes in one moment. No matter how much we believe, oh, this moment changed my life, probably not. It's a series of moments. And we just need to understand that with practice, just like we've been practicing fear, or practicing anger, or practicing self-loathing, we can stop practicing those things and bring our focus to where what we want to focus on. And that takes practice, takes time. It takes failure. It takes, yeah, well, I spent that whole meditation on, whatever. Doesn't matter. It is success to even show up to the meditation. And then it's success in, having an object or knowing what it is. And then it's success in just remembering it occasionally. It's really a process. And part of what is involved in that is when we are studying and reflecting and contemplating, we start to see the benefits of change. We look at, why would I want to give that up? Well, you're not doing anything. You already identified one of the reasons why maybe I want to give this up. If you're always having, regret over arguments with people you like or love or care about, or even just coworkers and you might go, well, I'd really like to quit having, that in my memory. I'd really like to not always lose my temper, or often lose my temper, or whatever. We want to, so when we're studying and reflecting and contemplating these things, we're looking also at the benefits of the change. So that makes sense? Because it must, because the Buddha said. So as Geshe says, I'm not making this stuff up. So when we're applying concentration, what helps us? What kind of things do we need? What other mental factors do we need? You need a motivation. How does motivation help us? It sort of gives us a reason, doesn't it? It's one of the reasons that we're using. Oh, I want to have a more peaceful mind so I can benefit those around me, so that I suffer less. And so that will naturally mean those around me will suffer less. And by the way, I'd like to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we do that. What other states of mind do we need? How do we focus? What are we using? What aspects of the mind are we using? I can't hear you. Concentration, but what makes up concentration? Focus. What helps us focus? Calm mind. But we need mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to remember the object, the focus, the focal point, you could say. So we need, to have that as an assistant. What do we need to have come into play while we're focusing? What do we need to notice? When we've forgotten the object. Yeah, through many different varieties, right? So we use introspection, or guarding alertness, to be able to go up, not on the object, and we bring it back. And it doesn't matter how many times we have to do that. That's the training. The training is doing that. Some days you have to do it the whole time. Other days you have a little more success and you kind of stay on the object for a little longer. But when you recognize you're not on it, yeah, bring yourself back. So mindfulness and introspection help us. All these things can happen, in the mind. I mean, this is our thought process. So we don't just have thoughts that disturb the mind, we also have thoughts. And when you think about it, the more skilled you are, the more practiced you are at mindfulness, it's an experience, isn't it? It's an experience of the object. You know what the object is. So when you practice walking meditation, you practice gardening meditation, or you practice, cooking meditation or whatever, where you're trying to just do one thing at a time. So you're not thinking about all your worries and all this kind of stuff. You're just paying attention to making a nice meal or making a cake or making beautiful vegetables in your garden or flowers in your garden, or you're taking a walk and you're actually noticing that there are trees out there, so you're not just thinking about all your worries, all these things, but we have to have a motivation to go, oh, there's a purpose in me doing this, and the purpose isn't just exercise, maybe the purpose is experiencing my life moment to moment, so we do things, that bring us some. But the more we focus, I did that, whoever it was who did that study where they had 40,000 people or something, just answer some 5 questions or something, they get a text and they just say, how are you feeling right now? And, da, da, da. They did that, and inevitably, or not inevitably, to the surprise of the researchers, the thing that correlated most is, if that's the right word, correlated most with being content with whatever you're doing was focus. Was that they're focused on one thing, they're not scattered, they're just doing what they need to do, whether they like the task or not. That's so interesting. So focus is something we experience with contentment. So that's cool. And we know that when we're watching a movie we really like, or we're reading a book we really like, or we're doing an activity we really like, we stay focused. We don't have any trouble staying focused. So that's something else to remember. We already have that skill. We're just trying to apply it in a new context that might be a bit boring at first. And that's where the discipline comes in. So if we hope to make progress without having any moments of going, man, this is tedious, that's probably not realistic. When we're making changes, when we're trying new things, or just keep, revisiting things we've been practicing, there's it's just a discipline. It's not just, oh yeah, I really want to do this. But what is the instructions when we're trying to just meditate on the breath or meditate on pure awareness or meditate at all? What's what's the final instruction? Don't you love how I'm not giving you any clues to these things? When do you end it? When it feels good. You don't wait till like, oh my God, when is that alarm going to go off? You get up while you still like it, because you don't want to train yourself in not liking it. So that doesn't mean you have to like the initial part of, oh, it's time to meditate, and you go get yourself organized for that, or put on your tennis shoes if it's a walking meditation or whatever. The first is the discipline of doing it. And sometimes that's not all that exciting, but we love it when we're disciplined in it, aren't we? When we don't even have to think about it anymore, we just do it. Well, that takes discipline. We had to get there, we had to practice it, but we don't want to continue our meditation to a point where we start to hate it, or the body hurts so much we can't even get up from meditation because you can't move. And you young ones enjoy this time. So, it's a process of recognizing. So the more we can be aware of what we are experiencing in that great space of clarity, the more we can guide ourselves through these steps. So really noticing, if we're uncomfortable or tense or afraid or whatever, it's helpful to getting ahead of things, saying something terrible, doing an action you regret, blah, blah, blah. So it's just giving yourself that permission. I'm not reliable. Let's step back and do nothing. Maybe I won't say anything. I won't automatically just respond to this person's, remark. So it's just a matter of giving you, because there really is space between thoughts, even though we can't tell yet. So all of you who meditate, you start to realize, oh yeah, there is space between thoughts. If I don't follow each thought with a story, connect the dots, there's actually space. That thought goes away, another thought pops up. But if we make a story, we immediately get hooked on it and then follow it and feed it, then away we go. And we're not experiencing our life. And that's given up a lot. So it's, days are much more, have you ever done anything, like I went to Plum Village a long, long time ago for about 6 months, and their practice is mindfulness, and there are all these rules about it. You're not allowed to talk while you climb stairs. You're not allowed to talk while you walk. You're not allowed to talk while you eat. You're not allowed to you have to do one thing at a time until you get really good at that. And then you might consider having 2 things at a time. But first, it's all one thing at a time. So I practiced that for 6 months. It was great. I had a point to this. I wonder what it was. Oh, it's so interesting to me how much I remember about that experience, because I was really present for so much of it. I remember the faces of the people, of the monks and nuns that were there at the time. And, Thich Nhat Hanh was there the whole time. I have a lot of really strong recollection about it. When I visited there years later, I remembered what other people did, da, 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 da. We get a conversation, you go, oh, how do you remember that? Well, because of the rules. So, and that's a nice experience to have, is this, oh, I really was present for that. So that's one of the gifts we give when, to ourselves when we when we implement the teachings of the Buddha. Any thoughts, questions, arguments? Yes, please.
A lot of this seems, and I guess I've read that it is too, sort of preparation for when you leave your body and you really want to watch where your mind is going at that moment.
You mean like at death?
At death.
Yep.
And so sometimes when I'm caught in very strong emotions, I'm just telling myself, like, if I were to suddenly die, my heart would stop. Would I want to be mad, that I just broke a cup? Is that an appropriate way to think? Or is it better to just say, I'm going to catch this emotion to be present for the people in my life and remember where I am?
Well, I think it's a really useful tool to remember we're going to die. Is this how you want to spend your time? That's not a useless thing to think. That's a practice. A lot of people practice by going through that process every night where they think about, oh, now I'm lying down in bed. I'm sinking deeper into the bed, and they practice working on their minds at the time of death. It's in a good place, not in a place. So I don't think it's dragging you away. You're bringing a tool into that moment saying, okay, I have a choice here, and this is what helps you make that choice, to keep your mind going in the direction you want it to go, and that's a really useful one. Because it's basically you've used reasoning that says, okay, if I look at the benefits of giving up these kinds of habits, one of them is that at the time of death, my mind will be peaceful. And that is sort of the point. The more we're familiar with peaceful states of mind, loving kindness, with compassion, in all likelihood, our mind at the time of death will be there. We'll be in those kinds of states because that's our go-to, as opposed to anger, resentment, grasping, attachment. Not that it's easy, but we really do want to have more moments of the kind of mind that feel good, not the kind of mind that is scary or angry or frustrated or indifferent to others, or, all these different states where we just don't care. I mean, we just really want to have more and more meaningful moments that are nice to remember, that are nice to experience at the time, that are just, that enhance our relationships with others. We're entirely dependent on each other. It's the only way we function. We wouldn't have clothes without others, a lot of strangers. All the different things we use every day are all the products of countless other people and beings. All that organic food, we depend on all those insects who eat all those things that we don't want in our foods without chemicals. So we depend on them. We're just dependent on all kinds of beings. So it's just this, the more we can experience each other with respect, appreciation, gratitude, and then how can we use that same tool when we're dealing with people that push our buttons? How can we use that? Well, you have compassion for them, but also, where does our compassion, generosity, patience come from? People who bug us the most. They're our greatest gift for developing our good qualities. This is why, the so-called God realms are not so helpful, because nobody needs anything, so you don't have to be generous. Nobody is cranky with you, so you don't have to be patient. You get everything you want, so you don't even, nothing. There's just nothing to practice, to develop your good qualities. You'll just exhaust all that good stuff that's ripening and, be a jerk in your next life, So it's just, it's not helpful. It's really, so we can use the same technique of gratitude and compassion and all this stuff, but just even that thing like, oh, this is what's going to help me develop the mind I want to have, is having this person who punches my buttons. We have to do it gradually. I mean, one of the things from that verse with Mama Tisha is that, I have to find it because, of course, I don't know it by heart. Avoid places that disturb your mind and always stay in places that enhance virtue. But it's at the beginning when we're baby practitioners, we kind of have to guard ourselves from, being in, situations, realize, oh, whenever I'm with this group of people, I'm always gossiping, trashing other people. I'm da, 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 da. I get angry. Man, we talk about politics, so maybe I need to cut that out for a while, But eventually, as we develop new skills, it won't matter where we are, because we will respond rather than react. Now, that takes a process, and some things are, like I may never be able to do that with politics, but I can do it with a lot of things I used to not be able to do it with. So it's just and we have to, kind of accept that, okay, I'm not a Buddha yet. I can beat myself up for the fact that there's still many conditions that I can't handle in a graceful way, or I can just keep working so that someday I will be able to, and not give up, because that doesn't do any good. But I often think about, when I'm on my deathbed, do I really want to think about, how many murder mysteries I've read? How much chocolate cake I've eaten? How much sugar in general I've eaten? No, how many, I mean, it's like, no, we want to think about our relationships, and whether, we've had any purpose. We helped others in some way. That's what we want to be able to think about on our deathbed, not, oh yeah, I spent hours and hours and hours reading murder mysteries. What kind of training of the mind is that? So, we want to know that we have choices. It doesn't mean we don't need the power of relinquishment, where we rest, where we just do something fun, where we have a good meal, preferably with others, where we're nice to them. you know, and I'm sure there are people that, accumulate a lot of success and wealth and stuff, that then, it's like, that's not what fulfills their lives. It's not like it's bad to have stuff. It's just that, you do want to take a break from all that to spend time with people, not just to sell them something. You want to spend time with them, to have meaning. So it's not really the stuff, that we accumulate. And, these are not the problems. It's our minds. It's our response to things. It's our way we train our minds. Because any activity can become meaningful if our minds are in that place. Because if our minds are in that place, we see the opportunities to benefit others. We see the moments where someone may need something from us. We'll be aware of them. We'll see our own discomforts and agitation and go, oh, I need to take care of myself so that I don't do something I regret. So self-care is very much a part of this. And the biggest self-care we can do is to take care of our minds. That helps us and it helps everybody around us. So it's very important. Okay, so let's meditate for a few minutes so that, we practice and I don't just run my mouth. This is our microphone, Bodhisattva. So let's just start with kind of getting comfortable in your seat, trying to sit up straight. Because one of the things about meditation is that we want to have a relaxed body and mind to meditate. Of course, we use meditation to get there. But we want to be awake, alert. So we don't want a posture that is conducive to falling asleep. I usually take a few deep breaths to just settle in my seat. And then you can set a motivation. I'm going to give this a try because I really want a calmer mind, and maybe this tool will help me. I have loved ones around me who I want to be able to treat with kindness and patience, generosity and love, compassion. And it's difficult to even remember to do that if my mind is agitated. So I'm going to do this practice of calming my mind through developing my concentration to help develop these skills. So now gently place your attention on the sensation of the breath going in and out of the body, either at the tip of your nose or as your belly rises and falls. And see if you can count 21 breaths. And if you don't get to 21, just wherever you get to, when you recognize, I've lost the object, just start over at 1. And any number will do. 3 will do. Now we can drop such a tight focus on our breath and shift to just all the awarenesses happening in our experience right now. We don't have to name them, label them, follow them. Just bring the awareness of knowing experiences of the senses. When thoughts arise, just recognize that's the mental experience. And don't feed the thought, don't follow the thought. Don't worry that the thought arose. You know, all these experiences happen because of the clear nature of the mind. So try to allow yourself to focus on that spaciousness of the mind, like a vast empty room. So all the experiences of the senses pass through this space. They're impermanent. They are the clouds in the sky. So we just want to focus on the sky. Now just gently bring your mind back to this room, to those around us. And rejoice. Oh, I gave it a shot. I didn't start snoring. That's helpful. So, all right. So we do some, I know there's a potluck next Sunday, I think. Is next Sunday the potluck week? Okay.
Yeah, next Sunday. And any other announcements, Elise or anyone? Robbie, got anything? Okay, our food drive is ending today and the diaper collection will start. Look for information. I'll get it on the calendars soon. Anything else, anyone?
Okay.
No, we're good. Okay.
So now we want to rejoice and dedicate all those positive imprints on, that will ripen its good stuff in the future to benefit others. Hi, Denise.
Please flip to the blue tab in the Gold Prayer Book to page 246, and we'll read the dedication verses from Master Shantideva. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of body and mind, obtain
an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits.
May no
No
living
living
creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Now turn to page 244 for the long life prayer for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then on the facing page, the long life prayer for Khyentse Rinpoche Jetsun Losam Delok. The one who mastered his speech at a very young age, the one with great patience who received the name Awatare, the one with great precision who spread the teachings of Lama Kappa on bliss and void, Lama, ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. And the inside back cover for a prayer for swift return of Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly gleam in glory for fortunate disciples. Then the inside front cover, prayer for the long life of Geshe-la. Supreme God, you lead us on the many paths of virtue. A shining sun, you give us the best of excellent explanation. Supreme virtuous friend, you are a constant Dharma companion. Lama, who has announced fame, may you ever remain. And then for Geshe Sampo, you who have steadfast imprints of virtuous qualities and keep the instructions of the glorious Guru in your heart. You who pass day and night with noble activities, great virtuous friend, may you have a very long life. And then 7 Tara mantras for all sentient beings. Om Tare Tu Re Soha. 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 Om Tare Tu Re Soha.
Thank you all. Have a meaningful day. Remember that when you get in your car to set a new motivation for the next thing you're doing. So rejoice, enjoy.
Thanks, everyone online. Hey, Peter.
Hi, bye. We'll see you.
Hi and bye.